Call the meeting to order. Welcome to the ninth meeting of the Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates. And today we are hearing testimony. We have two witnesses from the Department of Public Works and Government Services, Mr. Pablo Sobrino, the Assistant Deputy Minister of Acquisitions Branch, and Ms. Shireen Benzi V. Miller, the Director General, Acquisitions Branch, Office of Small and Medium Enterprises. And today we will be looking at the commercialization, Canadian Innovation Commercialization Program. And I know that witnesses are eager to ask questions, but I understand you'll have opening remarks first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very pleased to reappear before you today to discuss one of the programs under my direction, which is the Canadian Innovation Commercialization Program. We touched on this topic briefly during our appearance earlier this week and welcome the opportunity to speak about the program in more detail. Once again, returning with me is Ms. Shireen Benzi Miller, the Director General, who oversees the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises and the Client Engagement Sector of the Acquisitions Branch. The goal of the Canadian Innovation Commercialization Program is to bolster innovation in Canada's business sector by assisting Canadian businesses in commercializing their innovative products and services. A key driver for the creation of the program was this committee's 2009 report entitled In Pursuit of Balance, Assisting Small and Medium Enterprises in Accessing Federal Procurement. In response to that report, the government stated the following: that the government recognizes that innovation drives business competitiveness, quality and productivity improvements, and ultimately economic growth for Canada. And in the past, the Canadian government has used different procurement programs to support innovation in high technology sectors. Through the modernization of the procurement process, the government will work towards making the procurement process less prescriptive, more considerations of quality, and favor the incorporation of innovative goods and services. Par conséquent, le budget 2010 comprenait
Consequently, Budget 2010 included a commitment by the Government of Canada to promote economic growth through innovation. And the Canadian Innovation Commercialization Program was launched in September 2010 on a pilot basis for 2 years. The program covers 4 broad areas of innovation: environment, health, safety and security, and enabling technologies. The program works with Canadian businesses to match their innovative ideas and products with a federal department to test, evaluate, and receive critical feedback on their innovations. The program is based on 2 complementary components. The first component is an innovation procurement fund, and the second component is an outreach strategy that informs and educates Canadian businesses. The innovation fund is delivered as a procurement. Therefore, Canadian businesses must be successfully pre-qualified through a competitive call for proposals process. These calls for proposals require that Canadian businesses submit information on their innovations, business plan, and testing requirements. The evaluation process is completed in 3 stages.
Government Services Canada, and it serves to verify whether each proposal is in compliance with the mandatory criteria. This includes whether the business is Canadian, the proposed innovation includes 80% Canadian content, the proposal is under $500,000 and is at the appropriate stage of development for the program. Those that are compliant move forward to the second stage. This constitutes reviewing the level of innovation provided by the proposal, the business and commercialization plans of the business, and the benefits of the innovation to Canada. This stage of the evaluation is carried out by the National Research Council Industrial Research Assistance Program in their capacity of recognizing and understanding innovations. PWGSC receives a ranking of proposals from highest to lowest. The third stage of the evaluation is completed by an innovation selection committee, which is currently comprised of mostly private sector experts with relevant experience in innovation and commercialization. The selection committee reviews the top-ranked proposals to validate the conclusions of the second stage of evaluation. To protect the interests of the bidders, members of that selection committee are required to sign non-disclosure and conflict of interest agreements. Following the validation by the selection committee, PWGSC selects the highest-ranked proposals based on available funding for that call for proposals. These bidders are notified of their pre-qualification and can begin a search for a test department that is suitably matched to test, evaluate, and provide critical feedback on the innovation. To support this search, the program works with the pre-qualified businesses to identify potential test departments and to facilitate communications. Une fois que l'innovation présélectionnée est jumelée,
once a pre-qualified innovation and a test department are matched, contract negotiations proceed and the specific details of testing are worked out between the business and the applicable department. In some cases, negotiations will take into account the size and scope of the proposed test and the capacity of the department to accommodate it. The final step is the issuance of a contract which outlines the final costs, the timelines, and the expected outcomes. To support the promotion and education of the opportunities that exist through the program, as well as other opportunities that may exist to do business with the federal government, and an outreach strategy has been included as an integral component of the program. The outreach effort is delivered by the regional offices of the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises, allowing it to build on its experience working with small and medium enterprises. Additionally, the program also reaches out to other government departments to allow for an opportunity to identify what potential innovations exist in Canada that may support their operations and mandates.
Laissez-moi maintenant vous expliquer.
Calls for proposal released since the launch of the Canadian Innovation Commercialization Program in September 2010. It's been 1 year. The first call for proposals was released in October 2010, and in response, the program received 375 proposals. Based on available funding, 27 proposals were pre-qualified to be matched with government departments, the majority of which have already been matched. The second call for proposals was released in July 2011. We've received 335 proposals, and the evaluation process is currently underway. Given that this program has been operating for only 1 year, no products have completed their testing. It is anticipated that up to 5 to 10 years may be required for full commercialization of many of the successful program participants. And such is the notion of innovation. One measure that we can report against is the Budget 2010 commitment for the program to support up to 20 innovations. It is anticipated that this commitment will be exceeded in the first round, with over 20 of the 27 pre-qualified proposals proceeding to negotiations and to contracting. Cependant, les meilleures mesures de succès sont les...
However, the current best measure is early results and feedback from Canadian businesses and associations, which have shown a strong desire for a program like the Canadian Innovation Commercialization Program. With over 710 proposals submitted for 2 rounds of call for proposals, feedback from businesses suggests that demand exceeds the resources available through the program. Positive feedback has also been received from high-profile and well-known Canadian innovators. For example, in September 2010, W. Brett Wilson of Canoe Financials stated, and I quote,
that the gap between innovators' ideas and the marketplace is simply someone willing to bet on them, willing to take a chance on their product, and then willing to give them feedback so they can grow their business. Nous espérons que le programme offre ce genre d'occasion.
We trust this program provides this type of opportunity through a unique approach to procurement that can support Canadian businesses and innovation in Canada. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Interested committee members to asking questions. First, for the official opposition is Alexandre Bouleris.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome back to the committee. Since the subject is in the air, last time we talked about the website, and we talked about the website today. It's not a question. This cost of $73 million. The first thing I'm going to talk to you about, well, we're putting it into the context of the program you've talked about, and one of the key components of the program is, as you said, a report looking in pursuit of balance, assisting SMEs in accessing federal procurement. And then the government stated, the government recognizes that innovation drives business competitiveness, and we would try to make it less prescriptive, improve considerations of quality, and favor the incorporation of innovative goods and services. In one of the calls for proposals that was selected, we're talking about a company in New Brunswick. It raises sturgeon for caviar. For what department are we producing caviar? To supply whom? Thank you very much for your question. Thanks for your question. The most important thing to know is that we are not buying the caviar. We are going to buy training from departments to support the mandate of ensuring that food products are properly tested and that the tests meet international standards. So generally speaking, what we're doing is this. We look at the company because they've got an innovative approach to producing this product. And with the federal government, we carry out tests to ensure that the product meets all the food standards, international food standards. It's true that this is a small company in New Brunswick, but the interesting thing is this. It operates in the context of the CITES regulations, namely all the conditions required to protect the various species of fish. So that's what we're purchasing, the training. Thank you very much for your answer. My second question is a little less surprising. I'm coming back to the F-35s. It's a subject that's very controversial. I need not point that out, but one of the projects that was chosen, well, the government would be spending more money to develop ecological equipment to extend the life of these F-35s, a component that would prevent the aircraft from being considered an ecologically friendly product. I'd like to hear what you have to say about this. This is an innovative program that relies on a competitive program. The idea is to purchase innovation from Canadian companies in various priority cases, as Mr. Sobrino said, enabling technologies, health, and security. The priority sector of security is linked to defense, of course, so that is why this purchase will be made. We looked at these 4 priorities for Canadian businesses, and they cover a wide range of industries. We're talking about entirely open supply processes, so we do not decide which products will be come under the program. It's the industry that suggests that. If they meet the requirements of the program and meet the needs of the federal departments, it's very likely that this will be purchased for trial. In this case, we have an example of a product that improves the efficiency, and that is something that the federal government is interested in, and that also offers some environmental benefits as well. That's a little bit technical. I don't know if you can answer me. How do we extend the life of a fighter in an ecological way? Well, the fact of the matter is that one of the reasons we test these products is to look at all the comments made by the companies. So that would be one of the comments. If the company says that's going to be a more environmentally friendly product for the guns, well, then it will be tested in the context of the program. Just a clarification, if I might, because I was wondering about the same issue. The process that is used to prepare this equipment has an environmentally friendly approach, and so the approach would use a method in treating metals that would be more environmentally friendly. So there would be potential applications throughout the defense system beyond the F-35. And we know as well that this is a small company, and that's what we're trying to facilitate, the interaction between this company and the department that can use their product.
The speaker for the Conservatives is Jacques Gourde.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I would like to thank our witnesses for being back today. I'm going to be asking questions to help out SMEs rather than for the clips on TV, to help out with the Innovation Commercialization Program. What type of business can use this new program? Very good question. This new program is for any business in Canada which has innovation that hasn't been sold yet in the pre-commercial stage. So if we look at the area of research, it's between the prototype and something that's already been sold or commercialized. So any company that has some new ideas can put them forward in the context of this program. And that is why we named 4 areas of goods and services that are very broad to include as many companies as possible. Question. Since there were some examples mentioned earlier, perhaps you can give me some other Canadian companies as examples that came through in the first part of the proposal process. Give me an idea of the kind of products. I've got some SMEs in my riding that have some products who may not be aware of this program. So just give me some examples. Yes, with pleasure. I'll be answering in English and using some of the terminology because I don't want any errors.
For a cloud.
We have a contract with Data Gardens.
Data Gardens for a cloud federation system, which allows virtual machines to be migrated and protected across sites. And that's an Alberta company, and that's already being, the testing is starting shortly within government. Another example of a cool thing we're buying is G2 Robotics. I love this name. It's the ULS 100. Okay, I'll tell you what it actually is. It's the underwater laser scanner capable of creating digital, three-dimensional recreations of underwater environments. So it allows you to actually recreate it digitally and then work on it for research and things. That's a company from Ontario, and that's in the safety and security domain. Another one would be Amica Mobile Corporation's Server Emergency Alerting Edition, which is a patented emergency mass notification and network vulnerability platform. Say that 10 times fast. Auto-discovered wired and wireless devices in airports, on campuses, and in arenas, and that helps obviously in emergency situations. So that happens to be an Ontario company. Another one that might be of interest is the virtual marine technology, which is they produce the Mission Quest Multitask Simulator, which is a marine training solution, and it helps as a simulator designed specifically for Coast Guard, Navy, and waterborne enforcement agencies for tactical small boat crews. That's a company from Newfoundland and Labrador. Those are some of the ones that we are already beginning testing on. We have a number of others that are currently in negotiation for matching with federal departments. Obviously, and I do need to stress that even in the pre-qualified innovations, only those for whom the government could have a use, in other words, we have a match for, will actually go to contract.
I'm pleased to note, Mr. Chair, that the work done here in the committee leads to the creation of programs on innovation. This really is the future of Canada, jobs for the future in high technology and high caliber jobs, and that will make a difference worldwide. This is the type of program that we established. We've got some very competent people implementing them. So that's the role of our committee, and I'm very proud of it. Thank you very much.
Jacques, Mr. Wood, I'm sorry. Matthew Ravignan.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to our witnesses for being back with us today. According to Public Works and Governance, 76% come from the private sector. They were selected on the basis of their experience, their investment, and their entrepreneurship and their knowledge about innovation and commercialization. I'm quoting the information about your program, and knowledge about international commercial practices. You referred to conflict of interest in your presentation, but I'm wondering what specific mechanism you put in place to avoid any conflict of interest, whether perceived or real, between the selection committee, the members from the private sector, and the companies involved in this program, the ICP. It's something that we've taken into account in this first round. We wanted to have a selection committee that was outside the government. The idea was to have some lawyers with knowledge of intellectual property. We have some business people who are familiar with the financial aspect, and we also have some people representing companies that are involved in the field. We ask people to make a declaration as to whether or not there's a conflict of interest. It's a legal form that needs to be completed, and we ask for references, but we understand that there might be some concern because there are a lot of small companies involved, and there could be a problem. So we're looking at other models for the future, and we're trying to involve people from the university community who know about innovation, but who are at one remove from the industry. So that's another model that we're looking at to deal with this problem. Question. Can you tell me whether there are any regional criteria or even by sector or linguistic requirements with respect to the private and public sectors in choosing the members of your selection committee? Answer. I would say yes and no. We tried to find people in various fields, as Mr. Sobrino said, and of course we wanted to take into account the geography of the country and the distribution of diversity in this country. So we tried to establish a committee that would be quite representative but would have the necessary expertise. And I would just like to add this. The other steps that we took were this. The members of the committee didn't see any documentation before the meeting, and during the meeting they looked at the proposals they needed to see in order to make their evaluation. But afterwards they weren't able to take any documents with them. Thank you for the answer. Do I have time to ask another question? Okay. I'd like to know this. Do you think that for greater transparency, you might publish the criteria for the members of the selection committee? And do you think that a list with the names and capacities of these people should be published publicly, made public? The truth is that we're still in the pilot project stage, so that would be possible. We have no opposition to that, but I would say that I wouldn't suggest that we would publish the list of names before the evaluations are done or before the contracts are awarded, because at each level it's important to keep the evaluation process closed, because we are talking about an acquisition, but later on we could publish the names. We could publish the criteria so that people would know that. But one of the things we did was to ask associations whether they had any recommendations as to whether there were any experts that we hadn't thought about. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome back to the committee. It's great to have you back. We were looking forward to your presentation this afternoon after the preview earlier in the week. You mentioned one of the companies that's participating in the program, 2G Robotics. You described it as an Ontario company. It's actually a company in my riding of Kitchener-Waterloo, just for the record, and we're very proud of it. With respect to the businesses that are participating in the program, are they primarily startup companies, or are they existing companies that are innovating new products, or is it sort of a blend between both?
Thanks for that question. It's actually all kinds of companies that are just, inventors who have an idea, who have proposed it because it's ready to go, it's ready to commercialize, and this will help them in that last phase of testing, to larger companies that have already a known track record for innovation. So it really covers the waterfront, every size company, and in all areas and all industries. So it's really been an exciting program to watch from that perspective.
Startup companies
Absolutely.
That are participating. Great.
Absolutely. So one of the people we entered into a contract with, for instance, thought that we were going to show up with a check and didn't realize, for example, because they had never done business with the Government of Canada, that there was going to be an invoicing involved. So that's how startup they were, that they had never done business with us. They had no idea even how the process worked. So we're working with the gamut of business people out there, and it's really been very rewarding to see people who have never done business before, having this experience for the first time.
Great. So one of the clear goals, I suspect, is seeing some of these very small companies grow and prosper and create jobs.
Absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, this is a response to the private sector's cry, which we had heard loud and clear, was that the Government of Canada was very hesitant to be the first buyer of innovation. And so they wanted the Canadian government to kind of step up and be the tester, because that's what's called a referenced buy, when they can go to other you know, people who are interested, who may be interested in their products, and say, and other governments, and say, yes, my government bought it. That's really a good endorsement. And so it is to help companies really kickstart, as our minister says, to kickstart Canadian companies.
And a question about the testing process. Is testing provided to companies only in cases where there's a contract or a potential contract?
Yes, the testing is under contract. So we buy it. This is a procurement. So it's not like an R&D kind of early stage of development test. It's actually a late stage of development. You have to be at technology readiness, sort of 7 to 9 on a 9-point scale, and it really is in the pre-commercial stage. And we will test it, and it has to be under contract as something we have purchased.
Great. And obviously, I suspect that this is the case, that in addition to the scenario where the company sells to government, you would be assisting these companies sell to other customers outside of government, I suspect, as well. Is that correct?
No, we don't.
No?
This is a procurement program, so our money is intended for purchases made for the government to test. Now, all kinds of different departments and agencies will be the testing sites and the partners that we establish for the testing, because obviously different innovations require different testing environments.
I'm interested in the matching process, or the matchmaking process between the companies and the departments. Could you explain a little bit about how that process works?
Sure, that's actually a really fun part. I refer to that as the eHarmony part of the project. And it's actually really great, because it's very exciting when we see, for instance, people from Health Canada labs, you know, read about what we're thinking of buying, and they say, oh my God, we've been trying to get that for so long, and you know, spectrometers and cool things. And so we've actually, originally when we thought of the program, we thought this might be difficult. It might be difficult to engage other departments. They may not see a need for it. They may not, but we were completely mistaken. The enthusiasm that departments have shown for being the testing sites, and the willingness to, you know, meet all the terms of the testing plans, has just been phenomenal. So we're sort of trying to keep up with the demand, but the demand's been spectacular.
Great. Do I?
Well, wraps up your time, Peter. Thank you very much. And welcome from the Liberal Party, Dominique LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses. The discussion around the innovation commercialization aspect of your work is interesting. I want to bring you back, if I can, to the small and medium enterprise piece of your work. I represent a riding in rural Atlantic Canada. And I know in your binders you probably have a list of success stories of small and medium-sized businesses in New Brunswick that have successfully competed for federal procurement. I hope it's a long list, so don't pull it out and read it. But I hope you'll agree with me that there's a general sense amongst some small business people, and it's probably born out of a certain ignorance or intimidation around a competitive process that necessarily is getting more complicated or more burdensome, and I'm not suggesting it shouldn't be. There are examples in the past where perhaps it wasn't precise enough and there were mistakes. So we are where we are, but the business people I talk to have a general sense that either they won't be able to successfully compete because the economies of scale of a company that would be in a larger region of the country, or closer to Ottawa, or closer to a large urban center, may have an advantage that they don't have. I'm not saying it's necessarily true, but these are some of the impressions that they leave on us. I'm wondering if you could tell us what your office has done and what more perhaps could be done. It's almost an information campaign, and I know you've done some good work, as I say. I meet business people that talk enthusiastically about their success, but they tend to be younger generation business people. I'm not sure if their parents ran the company previously, they might have been as adventurous to go online and look at some Merck system or some there's a general hesitancy, and I'm wondering if we can do more from a regional perspective. And the same must be true in other regions of the country. Dans les régions du Québec, comme au nord de l'Ontario, c'est pas seulement
Quebec region or Northern Ontario as well, not just New Brunswick.
your previous minister who started this in 2005, that the small and medium-sized business represented rural Nova Scotia. And I remember he used to talk to us quite concerned about the sense that they don't, many of them don't compete, I think, because they don't understand that they can and should and will be successful if they offer the best value. I'm wondering what more we can do to change that culture, in addition to what you've already done, I think, quite successfully.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned on Tuesday, we have 6 regional offices that actually work all across the country in all rural and urban centers, and that has led to outreach to about 140,000 businesses and suppliers. But within the CICP program, a large portion of the funding for the pilot is for outreach. And so we have done about, in the 1 year we've been doing this program, we've done about 350 events in order to reach out to businesses across the country. We've reached a lot of businesses across the country, and we are trying obviously to leverage as many medium as possible, including our 800 line, including newsletters, including Chamber of Commerce newsletters, different industry newsletters. We speak at trade shows, we speak at the various events that we're invited to. What I would say is, when people come to you and say it's hard to do business with the Government of Canada, give them my number.
You may regret
1-800. Well, no, really, we are open for business.
Give us your cell number, maybe.
You know what? That won't help them. But I'll put them in touch with people who can give them real answers.
No, and you're right. I think it's a perception often more than a reality, but it's unfortunate because the government may not get the best value for the money you're spending, and these businesses may not get the best chance to compete.
Absolutely. The Offices of Small and Medium Enterprises was created because there was a recognition of the fact that, actual or perceived, there are barriers potentially, and those barriers ought to come down in order for the Crown to get the best value and in order for suppliers to have the best access. So we are only too happy to be of service across the country.
Final question, maybe with respect, and I'm sure you've heard this before, one of the things, those that are successful in the procurement process, small and medium-sized businesses often have difficulty with respect to cash flow. And it's not only large corporate customers that may not pay their bills except at 89 days. They worry, sometimes it may be their fault if the paperwork and so on wasn't appropriate, but you must be hearing also that there's a concern about rapid payment. One thing about a government check I always tell them is it's going to clear. You don't have to worry about the thing coming back NSF, but they wait a long time often for it. I remember when I practiced law, government receivable is about the best one you can have. You can actually bank on it, but it doesn't make them feel better if they're waiting a long time. I'm wondering if that's a problem as well.
That's certainly an issue. We covered some of this on Tuesday, but fundamentally we're working with the Office of Comptroller General to ensure there's financial policies in place for quick payment and to get payments out immediately, so within 30 days generally. We've also included that as a management measure. We assess how managers are managing, and part of that is that piece there. But it is a process. We're well aware of the problem, and also to honor interest payments on late payments as well. So that's another element.
Thank you, Mr. Sobrino. Thank you, Dominique. Kelly Block.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you again for being here today. I, too, was looking forward to this meeting and hearing more about this project. So, in keeping with the government's commitment in 2010 to promote economic growth through innovation, this program was launched. Your year 1 is coming to an end. You've got another year of the pilot project. You mentioned that you're in your first year, so no products have reached completion. Is that correct? You also mentioned that you procure it's procurement for testing, and typically these products are ready to go to commercialization. So how long does that take? You mentioned 5 to 10 years, but at what point are you procuring these products for testing, and how long will it take for you to know whether or not they will be successful? And second question, how many of the funded projects are expected to be successful?
On the first question, we take the project or the proposal or the product at a point where it's been invented, but it's not yet commercialized. So it doesn't actually, they haven't monetized it, they haven't figured out how to sell it, but they need to assess whether it's actually a useful product. And so that's essentially the contract that the federal government's offering, is you have something a product that you think is worth something, that can do something, and we have a huge many government departments with many interests, and hopefully we can find somebody who is actually interested in that product, will take it, will test it, and give you feedback on whether it works, how it works, all those things. And then you can go back and do the work on it. We won't do the commercialization side. There's other agencies that do that, Business Development Bank, other kinds of programs that can help commercialize. So how do you take the product from an idea? So we're taking it, the idea's being had, they've developed a prototype, we're assessing the prototype, and then if that prototype with our feedback can make it better, then they can move to commercialization. And the idea about 5 to 10 years, and I'm sure you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the experience in the United States, which has a kind of program like this, a bit of apples and oranges, but they have an innovation program like this, it takes from the idea coming out to testing to actually getting it as a commercial product is 5 to 10 years. That's how long it takes to get an innovation to market. And so we're just one step along that way.
And I guess the second half of your question, which was what percentage of the products will be successful. You know, there's no way of actually even defining what successful is, because when a product is tested between prototype and commercialization, a lot can change from the feedback as to what needs to happen. So they may actually have to go back to the drawing board potentially. In the innovation world, they say 50% of innovations make it to commercialization. We don't expect our ranking to be any better or worse than that, but we have no way of knowing really. And the truth is, we've never really set the program up as we're not commercialization experts. What we are is we are experts in helping businesses and leveraging the government procurement to help businesses. So will we be successful in that? I think we'll be successful in that 100% of the time, whether or not the company is actually successful in commercializing that particular innovation.
Thank you. Do I have any?
Yeah, 1.5 minutes still, Kelly.
Great. The other question I had for you, a couple of days ago you mentioned that you had just had cake. You were celebrating the buy and sell website, and that was quite a thing to celebrate because you were also in the process of the first year of this pilot project. Can you tell me what has the impact been on your office with this expanded mandate to, help innovators in this area?
Wow. Where do I begin? The impact on the office. You know, the offices of small and medium enterprise, we like to describe ourselves as small but mighty. And so certainly when the government in a budget that really didn't have a lot of new money and it gives you $40 million for a 2-year pilot, you feel a lot mightier. So we have really taken that responsibility very seriously, and everybody in our regional offices, for example, has gotten involved in the outreach. And so we were already doing seminars on how to do business with the Government of Canada, but now it's not only how to do business with the Government of Canada, but did you know we might also be interested in buying the things you haven't sold yet? You know, so it adds an element of offering and service that the industry is very, very hungry for. And the feedback that we've had from industry, which is the only way I can really measure the impact, it has been phenomenal. The two things that have been said that would be sort of negative would be it's only a pilot, that's a bummer, and $40 million doesn't seem like enough money to buy all the innovations in Canada. So I figure that's pretty good feedback, and the impact, obviously, of the good feedback has been to really energize us to buy as many great things as we can.
Thank you.
That's the end of your time, Kelly. That's the end of the first round. And just as a point of clarification, it may be repeating your testimony from Tuesday, but I forget, what is the number of FTEs you have in OSME, and what is the annual budget, and what is the size of your American counterparts' office?
The full size of my American counterparts office, I can't even tell you. I know that they have 1,000 ground personnel who go out into the field, and we have 20 who do that, or less than 20. But their budget is $842 million. The budget of OSME, per se, for salaries is, with the regional offices, close to $6 million. We also have separate monies allocated for the government electronic tendering system. As I mentioned, we're responsible for that contract. So OSME's budget is not, that's not all salary, that's salary and O&M. So in terms of the number of people, the reason I'm not being particularly specific is we're in the process of melding. As you might have heard Mr. Sobrino say, I'm now the Director General actually of 2 sectors, not just the offices of small and medium enterprise, but also the client engagement sector. So we're in the process of trying to do efficiencies.
What you've told me is helpful. I'm just trying to see by ratio and proportion where we stand with our American counterparts in our commitment to not only service to medium and small enterprises, but the commercialization of innovation. And as I understand you, is roughly 1,000 people doing this work in the States in a country 10 times the size, and you have roughly
in the
20.
Outreach. That's the outreach for their field personnel.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Starting the second round, Denis Blanchette for the official opposition.
Welcome back. Mr. Sobrino, during his presentation, spoke about the process for qualifying for companies. It's set out very clearly, and we appreciate that now. I would like a little bit more explanation about the selection process. How do you go from more than 300 companies that qualify to the 27 in the first round of selections? What are the criteria? Are there certain quotas by industry that were pre-identified? Please tell me how this works. Yes, with pleasure. There are 3 stages in the process. The first is done by our department. We look at the obligatory criteria to see whether, for instance, whether it's for less than 5 million, that's the maximum that we have spent, whether the innovation has ever been commercialized, because if it has, then it would be disqualified. If the company is Canadian, because this is just for Canadian companies, another criterion is whether the good and service includes 80% of Canadian content. Okay, understood all of that. Beyond that, well, once we've determined that the company is eligible, we send out the documentation to IRAP, NRC.
I can't believe I can't breathe. Assistance program, assistance program. And they have 2 independent, ils ont 2 évaluations indépendantes.
They do 2 independent evaluations based on the documentation that they receive. Then they give us everything in order of success. And we cut off the list depending on the amount that we've set aside for that round.
The resulting companies, so a list of, say, 40 in the first round, went to the independent or the Innovation Selection Committee, which is the external committee, and they looked at all of the proposals under that round to confirm that the rank ordering was accurate, and where they had questions or where they had doubts, those went back to NRC IRAP for reevaluation, and then we finalized the list based on the amount of money to be spent in each round.
So as in most procurements, requests for proposals go out, proposals come in, we assess whether they meet the mandatory criteria, and the mandatory criteria you get knocked off, and then you're left with a bunch, and then you rank order them in terms of how they meet certain evaluation criteria, which Shireen has just kind of explained some of the evaluation criteria. And then we have 1 to 40, and we have money for 25, so it's 1 to 25 are granted that. So you don't get passed up the list. The list is set, and then we allocate the money that way.
But I do need to say we don't necessarily buy all the pre-qualified innovations, because even after that, we need to make sure, first of all, that there's a department that would be interested in testing it, so that there's a usefulness in government, and also that the company is actually ready, because sometimes some of the innovations may not actually be ready to be sold, so they have to be ready for contract.
OK. Là, présentement, on est dans un projet pilote de deux.
We're in a 2-year pilot project at the moment, and you say somewhere in your statement that it takes 5 to 10 years to commercialize before innovations become marketable. So the question is this: how are you going to about assessing the program, since you've got just 2 years? But we can only see results in 5 to 10 years in some cases. How are you going to go about assessing the program after the 2-year pilot project is over? Well, the objective of the program is to assist companies in their efforts to commercialize. Ultimately, the question is, have they commercialized? But that's not the main objective of the program. Our program is designed to help them out. So the measures will have to do with the commercialization process and the steps taken by the companies to get the good or service from the idea to the prototype to commercialization. So we need the feedback from the companies as to whether or not our tests help them improve the product in an effort to commercialize it. Another question: were the industries improved as a result of this, and were there any sales that resulted? That will be a more long-term measure of assessment. In the first 27 companies that were qualified, only 2 were from Quebec. Is there some reason that would explain that, something that would explain that? Is it because there aren't a lot of Quebec companies that put in a bid, or what happened exactly? Well, from Quebec, in the first request for proposals, there were 72 proposals, and in the second, there are 78. So the percentage of the total was 19%, and now it's 23% in the second call for proposals. So proportionally speaking, if we look at the distribution per 100,000 companies in each province, when we look at the distribution, it's not bad, but we're using these figures to do more outreach, of course, and to try to reach more companies to get them interested in the program.
Thank you. Next for the Conservatives, Mr. Scott Armstrong.
Well, I want to thank the witnesses for their presentation. I think this is quite exciting, and I can tell that you're excited about this. And I'm sure you'll be back at the end of 2 years asking for more money to continue this type of project. And well, I don't think you would ever wait for anything, quite frankly. I have a couple of process questions. You send out a request for proposals, and how do you promote this program so it, like we mentioned, there's some areas might have had more proposals come in, some areas had less. How do you promote this nationwide?
We promote it any way we can think of. We use websites. We use other people's websites. We put out material. We go to trade shows. We go anywhere we're invited to talk about it. That's why actually I'm delighted to tell all of you, because I'm sure you'll tell 2 friends and they'll tell 2 friends and they'll tell 2 friends. So don't kid yourself. I'm doing outreach right now. It's about really maximizing the outreach that we can do through 6 regional offices, and promoting it through any means that we can do.
So we often, as MPs, have people come to our offices with ideas, and I'm going to give you an example of one what's come to me. It's called Atlantic Combustion, and they don't qualify for this program because they've already commercialized, but they developed a chemical additive product which makes fuel burn more efficiently. It burns hotter, it burns cleaner, so it's good for greenhouse gas emissions. And what they're trying to market to is bigger utilities, Nova Scotia Power, Emera, companies like that across the country and actually in the eastern seaboard of the United States. And they've got a lot of data, a lot of background. They've established the product works, but it's pretty innovative. It's a new thing, and they haven't got anybody to be first. Nobody, of course, wants to be the first to buy into this. Would that be the type of project, if it comes to one of us or it comes to a community leader, that might be referred to this program in an earlier stage?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we try to do is help companies figure out when this program fits into their journey of commercialization. And, you know, we do it also by working with the various incubators across the country, and with working with ACOA and WED and BDC and all the agencies and organizations that help early stage development companies. To help them figure out where we fit and to know about the program.
Because very often on the private side of things, again, nobody wants to be first to try a new product or a new innovation. Why would you change when everything has always worked before? So you really are a bridge to try to overcome that hurdle for a lot of these, especially the smaller companies, probably a single product company who are just starting out. You know, do you see this project expanding, you know, depending on the results after you do your assessment after the 2-year pilot project? Do you see this as a possible program that could expand, that we could do a larger program to increase innovation?
It's a supplier-driven program. We're not doing the usual government demand pull. We're asking for supplier push. So really, it's about how responsive the industry is, and we will be responsive to their enthusiasm. The truth is that one of the things that happens in a program like this is that it changes the nature of procurement, because historically procurement is about the government defining its need rather than asking suppliers for solutions to government problems. And this is a wide open procurement. It just says, bring us your untried ideas and let's give it a shot. So it's really, I mean, and that's why Brett Wilson's quote is an interesting one, because he says the difference between success and not success is somebody believing in you, and it gives companies that one opportunity to get the government of Canada behind their product. So,
I have one more question. How has your uptake from departments been? Have some departments been better advocates than others, or this is the eHarmony stage we're talking about that you called it. How is your relationship with the departments? Do you have to go beat down their doors to get them to try these things? Or how does that work?
You know, we're doing a lot of outreach with departments the way we do with suppliers, so that they can become familiar with this program, because it's new to them also. This is a whole new way of getting things into the fold. So we're doing a lot of outreach, and we've had really unmitigated enthusiasm from departments. Look, over time, it's one of the measures that we're going to be reporting on for our performance measures. You know, how well did we integrate with government business? Because it is about making the government more efficient and making government business more innovative. And so that's a success measure too. And so far, I have to say I'm very optimistic, although we are only 1 year in and we haven't really started the testing. But the enthusiasm for being testers and for matching, which is why close to 27 of the 27 innovations we currently have pre-qualified have been matched. So that's all. I mean, those are the numbers that I have that speak for themselves.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Right on time then, Scott. Thank you very much. Next for the NDP, Alexandra Boulderis.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. You said earlier that your American counterpart has some 1,000 employees and a large budget of $842 million. Here, we don't have anything comparable to help our SMEs to push innovation. Something that surprised me when I looked at your statement was that, well, the idea is good, but we're talking about a total budget of $40 million. If we do compare to our American counterparts, it's about half of what they're doing. And if we take the population difference into account, and we've set a maximum of 20 projects. 20 projects a year. Well, that's the minimum. That's the minimum. It'll be at least 20 projects. At least 20. Okay. the language of the budget was that in the pilot project stage, it would be at least pilot 20, and we've already exceeded that. We're 27 that are pre-qualified in the first call for 27. Well, I checked. About 1.6 million SMEs in Canada. We're talking about 27 projects. Do you think that's enough? Or would you like to see this program, which is in its first year, grow, get bigger, and catch up to the Americans program? What I'd like to say here is that what was decided on was to have this pilot project to see how this program would work. In the United States, it was hard really to compare with ourselves to the American program. They've got needs. The government has certain needs, and they ask the industry to come up with innovations to meet their needs. We're doing something innovative here. We're asking industry for their ideas that could be useful to government. We don't know exactly what we need. Could you come up with some new ideas to deliver whatever to various departments? And then we make a link between your idea and the department that might use it so that it could test it out. That's why it's a pilot project. Is it a good way of promoting innovation? We want to have the door open to new ideas. We don't know what innovation is going to be useful, so we're proceeding a little differently here. There are a lot of programs in government to seek out ideas that we're after, but here the idea is to promote innovation on the part of businessmen and companies. So that's what the program is about. That's why we're talking about a pilot project, because we're not sure it's going to work. It seems that there is a lot of demand, but we have to start somewhere, and this is where we decided to start. I agree that we have to start somewhere, but I think we started a little bit late. We've got some catching up to do, because we all agree that in terms of S&T innovation, this is the way of the future, where there is such a lot of international competition when we talk about China and India as well, where there are hundreds of thousands of engineers. If we don't push innovation here in this country of 34 million people, we're going to have trouble making our way in this area. Perhaps we're underrepresented here. I like the program. I like the ideas, but do you think that 40 million a year and 27 projects is enough? I know we have to start somewhere, but it looks like a drop in a bucket. And we do a lot with the money that we get.
And last in this round so far, well, no, we'll see how much time we have, but next speaker for the Conservatives is Mr. Bev Shipley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for coming. I'm the visitor. I've only been here once, and you've been here twice. But I got to tell you, this Canadian Innovation Commercialization Program is exactly something that I think many of us have thought about for a long, long while. It may be a pilot project. It may be not doing everything in terms of numbers that we want, but I can tell you, if it likely wasn't a Conservative government in place, it still wouldn't be in place, because we believe in our entrepreneurs and our innovators. And this gives them that opportunity, in which now the government is going to become a partner to get something in place that actually I want to talk about, because I'm also actually on international trade. And I can just see long ways out the opportunity for these small companies and medium-sized companies as they develop through the procurement for a government. The government agrees, and now we've got a private company, public company that is now actually going to have something that they can take abroad. And I think this is so exciting, because it gives our small and medium-sized businesses the opportunity in an area of procurement for government things that they didn't have. But I do have a question because it's likely something that just because I don't understand it. You've got 375, you've got 27 that were pre-qualified in that first round. So before I get to my question, which I maybe don't understand, is there a balance of applications that are coming in through the 4 criteria?
Yes. It's interesting, actually. You know, we don't specify the distribution. There's no limits to how these get distributed across the various categories. So we didn't require them to be in one category or another. But in the first round, for instance, 100 were environmental, 38 were in the health category, and 92 were in the safety and security field. And then 145 were in enabling technology. But I have to say that the enabling technology one is the kind of catch-all category to allow as many entrepreneurs to propose innovations as possible. So it wasn't surprising that that was the highest. And in the second round, that was the highest also at 123. Environment was at 79 in the second round, 47 for health, and 87 for safety and security. So it's a pretty good distribution across the 4 areas.
Just my writing, not unlike my colleagues across the way, Mr. LeBlanc, is that I'm a rural, large writing, but very much rural. So when I look under example nanotechnology, biotechnologies, agri-food, nanotechnology, then we move to genetically modified plants, improved disease detection, and I'm assuming that means human and animal, and biofuels. Can you explain to me a little bit so that I understand how a company will come forward with something like that, get it approved if it gets pre-screened, and how that will actually end up then being part of something that they're going to be able to use in the commercial world and in fact actually be able to trade it or use that as something that we're going to be able to use to market, not only in Canada, but to other countries.
Well, I think what you're asking me is how useful really is the feedback they're going to get from the Government of Canada. Well, there are two things about participating in the program that I think are useful. The first thing is that they will get specific feedback about that good or service from end users. So they will have qualified experts who know what they're doing in their field, testing their product and giving them constructive feedback on how they might improve it. So that's the first benefit. But the second benefit, and that's the one, for instance, that people like Terry Matthews are very keen on, is that when they do go to market or commercialize their goods or services internationally, they will be able to say that their first buyer was the Canadian government, and the Canadian government, you know, liked it, didn't like it like this, they changed that. You know, they can actually use it to market their product or service.
Okay. And I just one, and then I'll wrap up, Mr. Chair, is that you did talk about the question about how do they help afterwards? How do they get the approval? And one of the things that is out there is the Trade Commissioner Services that actually takes companies, helps them to market that other places around the world. And so I think there's a connectivity in terms of communications as you move through this pilot for the successes of how we can actually then help them be marketers of a product that they've got commercialized. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Shipley. And is there a quick answer to Mr. Shipley?
Yes, I just very simply that we're just part of a continuum, and we're filling a gap that was identified, which is what this committee recommended back to the government. The former committee recommended back to the government, which is that there's inventors and there's mechanisms for commercializing, but it's that in between, and this is what this funds is, that in between before you become commercial.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Yes, let me also thank both the witnesses for coming back for a second time, Mr. Sobrino and Ms. Shireen Bensby Miller. It's very useful and very helpful. We only asked you to stay for an hour, and we do have a delegation from Kenya actually coming to the committee next, so we'll thank you and excuse you. And I'm going to suspend the committee, and we will reconvene in camera for our guests. Thank you very much.